The rain hammered against the windows of Rosie's diner like bullets, each drop a tiny explosion against the glass. Maya Torres wiped down the same counter for the third time, her tired eyes flicking toward the clock. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until closing, and the diner was mercifully empty except for old Mr. Peterson nursing his decough in the corner booth. She'd been on her feet for 11 hours straight, covering for Jenny who'd called in sick again. Her lower back screamed with every movement, but Maya couldn't afford to complain. Not when she was 3 months behind on her mother's medical bills. Not when the eviction notice was already taped to her apartment door. The bell above the entrance chimed, and Maya suppressed a groan. She plastered on her customer service smile and turned toward the door. The man who entered was drenched. Water streamed from his expensive-looking coat, pooling on the checkered linoleum floor. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and there was something wild in his eyes, panic maybe or fear. He wore no tie, and his white shirt was torn at the collar. "Please," he said, his voice hoarse. "I need help." Maya's instinct screamed. Danger, but something in his desperation made her pause. He didn't look threatening, despite his size. He looked hunted. "Sir, we're about to close. I'll pay triple. Whatever you want. Please, I just need somewhere safe for an hour." He glanced over his shoulder at the dark street beyond the window, and Maya saw his hands trembling. Before she could respond, her manager, Derek Chun, emerged from the kitchen. Derek was a wiry man in his 40s with a perpetual scowl and a reputation for being the cheapest manager in the entire restaurant chain. "What's going on here?" Derek's eyes narrowed at the puddle forming around the stranger's feet. "I'm sorry," the man said quickly. "I just need to get out of my diner," Derek interrupted. "Look at this mess. And it's past closing time anyway." Maya saw the man's jaw tighten, saw the way his shoulders slumped. In that moment, he reminded her of her younger brother the night he'd been evicted from his apartment. Desperate, defeated, running out of options. "Derek, it's pouring outside," Maya said quietly. "Maybe we could follow company policy," Derek snapped. "Which says we close at midnight sharp. Not our problem if this guy chose to walk in a hurricane." It wasn't a hurricane. It was barely even a storm. But Derek was looking for an excuse, the way he always did. The stranger's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands, glanced at the screen, and his face went white. "Please," he whispered. "They're coming." "Who's coming?" Maya asked, alarm bells ringing in her head. "Torres, don't even think about it," Derek warned. But Maya was already moving. She grabbed the man's arm and pulled him toward the back of the diner. "Storage room. Now." "Maya." Derek's voice rose to a shout. She ignored him, yanking open the door to the cramped storage space that smelled of bleach and old grease. "Get in. Don't make a sound." The man looked at her with such profound gratitude that it made her chest ache. "Thank you," he breathed, and disappeared into the darkness. Maya barely had time to close the door before Derek was on her, his face purple with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Helping someone who needed. I don't care if he's the president himself." "You don't make those calls, Torres." "I do." Derek stabbed a finger toward the front of the diner. "Now get him out of my restaurant before I—" The bell chimed again. 3 men entered this time. They wore dark suits despite the late hour, and their eyes scanned the diner with professional efficiency. The one in front was tall and broad-shouldered, with a scar running down his left cheek. "Evening," he said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "We're looking for someone." Man, about 6 feet, dark hair, probably came in here a few minutes ago. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Derek started to speak, but she cut him off. "Haven't seen anyone like that." The man's eyes locked onto hers, and she felt the weight of his scrutiny. "You sure about that, sweetheart? Because lying to us would be a very bad idea." I'm sure. Maya kept her voice steady, even as her palms began to sweat. Only customer we had all night is Mr. Peterson over there, and he's been here since dinner. The scarred man glanced at the elderly man in the corner booth, who raised his coffee cup in a shaky salute. Then his gaze returned to Maya, lingering on her face for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. If you're lying, we'll be back. And trust me, you don't want that. They left as quickly as they'd arrived, but the threat hung in the air like smoke. Maya released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Derek's voice was ice. My office. Now. The next 10 minutes were a blur of shouting and accusations. Derek called her reckless, stupid, and a liability. He said she'd endangered everyone in the diner. When Maya tried to explain, tried to make him understand that something was clearly wrong, that the man had been terrified, Derek cut her off. I don't care if he was running from the mob, the FBI, or his own shadow. You don't get to make those decisions. Derek's hand hovered over the phone on his desk. I should call the police right now. Don't, Maya pleaded. Please. Just let him leave when it's safe. No one has to know. I know. And that's enough. Derek's expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. You're fired, Torres. Effective immediately. Get your things and get out. The words hit her like a physical blow. Derek, please. I need this job. My mother should have thought about that before you decided to play hero. He crossed his arms. You've been a decent worker, Maya. But I can't have employees who put feelings over rules. It's a liability I can't afford. Numbness spread through Maya's limbs as she cleared out her locker. 5 years at Rosie's diner. 5 years of double shifts and customer complaints and burns from the grill. Gone in an instant because she tried to help someone in trouble. She found the stranger still hiding in the storage room. Up close, even in the dim light, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought, maybe late 30s. There was something refined about his features, something that spoke of wealth and privilege despite his current state. They're gone, she said quietly. But you should leave now. Through the back. He emerged from his hiding place, studying her face. You lost your job. Because of me. It wasn't a question. He must have heard the shouting. Yeah, well. Maya managed a weak smile. Not your fault. I made the choice. What's your name? Maya Torres. She wasn't sure why she told him. Maybe because it didn't matter anymore. Maybe because she was too tired to care. He extended his hand. Alexander Hunt. The name meant nothing to her. She shook his hand briefly, noting the expensive watch on his wrist, one of the few things that hadn't been damaged by the rain. Thank you, Maya Torres. I won't forget this. Right. Sure. She grabbed her coat from the hook. Good luck with whatever you're running from. She pushed through the back door into the rain-soaked alley, leaving Alexander Hunt and Rosie's diner behind. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just changed forever. Maya's apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning, a monument to her failing life. The eviction notice on the door seemed to glow in the harsh hallway light. Inside, the answering machine blinked with angry red numerals. 7 messages. Probably all from creditors. She didn't have the energy to listen to them. Instead, she collapsed on her second-hand couch and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Her phone showed 1:47 a.m. In less than 7 hours, she needed to be at the hospital for her mother's morning shift at dialysis. After that, she had to figure out how to explain that she no longer had a job. That the steady income keeping them barely afloat had just evaporated because she'd helped a stranger. Her mother would be disappointed but not surprised. Rosa Torres had always said her daughter had too much heart for her own good. Sleep came in fitful bursts, punctuated by nightmares of scarred men and angry managers. When Maya's alarm shrieked at 6:30 a.m., She felt worse than she had before lying down. The hospital was a 40-minute bus ride across town. Maya dozed against the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. The city looked different in the early morning light, softer, almost gentle. It was an illusion, she knew. This city had never been gentle with her. Her mother was already in the dialysis chair when Maya arrived, hooked up to the machine that had become her lifeline. Rosa Torres had once been vibrant and strong, a woman who'd raised 2 children alone while working 3 jobs. Now, at 58, she looked 20 years older. Kidney disease had stolen her strength, her savings, and her future. "Mija," Rosa said, her voice weak but warm. "You look terrible." "Despite everything," Maya laughed. "Thanks, Mama. You really know how to make a girl feel special." "I'm serious. What's wrong?" Maya sank into the chair beside her mother's bed. For a moment, she considered lying. Then she remembered that her mother always knew, somehow, when she was hiding something. "I lost my job last night." The words hung between them like a confession. Rosa's eyes closed briefly, and when they opened again, there was grief there, not for herself, but for her daughter. What happened? Maya told her everything. The stranger, the men, Derek's fury. When she finished, Rosa was quiet for a long moment. "You did the right thing," Rosa finally said. "The right thing is going to get us evicted. Then we'll figure it out. We always do." Rosa reached out with a hand that wasn't connected to tubes and IVs, and Maya took it. Her mother's skin was paper-thin, bruised from years of needles. "You have a good heart, Maya. Don't let this world make you ashamed of that." Tears burned behind Maya's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Crying was a luxury she couldn't afford. The next few days passed in a haze of job applications and rejection. Maya pounded the pavement, hitting every restaurant, cafe, and diner in a 10-block radius. But word traveled fast in the service industry. Derek had made sure everyone knew about the employee who defied orders and harbored a fugitive. Didn't matter that Alexander Hunt hadn't been a criminal. The story grew with each retelling until Maya was practically a terrorist sympathizer. No one would hire her. By the end of the week, Maya had $12 in her checking account, a refrigerator containing half a jar of peanut butter and a questionable apple, and a landlord who was no longer accepting promises instead of rent. She was sitting on her couch, staring at yet another rejection email, when someone knocked on her door. Maya wasn't expecting anyone. For a wild moment, she thought it might be the scarred men from the diner, finally tracking her down. Her hand trembled as she checked the peephole. The woman stood in the hallway. She wore an immaculate gray suit and carried a leather briefcase. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and even through the distorted glass of the peephole, Maya could tell this was someone important. "Ms. Torres," the woman called. "My name is Patricia Lynn. I represent Alexander Hunt. May I come in?" Maya's pulse quickened. She opened the door but left the chain lock engaged. "Who?" Patricia smiled thinly. "The man you helped 5 days ago. May I come in? I promise this will be worth your time." Against her better judgment, Maya unlatched the chain and stepped aside. Patricia entered with the air of someone who was used to being obeyed, her heels clicking on the worn linoleum. "Nice place," Patricia said, though her tone suggested otherwise. She set her briefcase on the coffee table and extracted a folder. "I'll get straight to the point. Mr. Hunt would like to thank you for your assistance." "That's not necessary," Mr. Hunt disagrees. "You lost your job protecting him. That's not something he takes lightly." Patricia opened the folder, revealing a check. Even from across the room, Maya could see the number of zeros. $50,000. Maya's breath caught in her throat. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because I didn't help him for money. I helped him because it was the right thing to do." Patricia regarded her with something that might have been respect. which is exactly why Mr. Hunt wants you to have it. Consider it compensation for your lost wages and future opportunities. Maya's mind raced. $50,000 would pay off her mother's medical bills, would cover 6 months of rent, would give her breathing room to find a proper job instead of desperately scrambling for anything that would take her. Tea was also charity. And Maya Torres had never been good at accepting charity. I can't, she said again, even as her heart screamed at her to take it. Patricia sighed and pulled out a business card. Think about it. When you change your mind, and you will, call this number. Mr. Hunt is a patient man, but he doesn't like leaving debts unpaid. After Patricia left, Maya stared at the business card for a long time. The name embossed on it was simple: Alexander Hunt, CEO, Hunt Industries. With shaking hands, Maya grabbed her phone and typed the name into Google. The results made her stomach drop. Alexander Hunt wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest men in the country. Forbes estimated his net worth at $8.7 billion. Hunt Industries was a tech conglomerate that had revolutionized everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence. Alexander Hunt was a genius, a visionary, and according to multiple articles, a ruthless businessman who'd crushed competitors without mercy. Was also, Maya realized as she scrolled through images, devastatingly handsome when he wasn't soaking wet and terrified. The most recent articles explained what had happened that night at the diner. Alexander had been targeted by a corporate espionage ring that had tried to kidnap him for access to Hunt Industries' latest technology. The men chasing him had been hired mercenaries. If they'd caught him, Alexander would likely have been tortured for information and then killed. Maya had saved a billionaire's life. And now he wanted to give her $50,000 like it was pocket change. She thought about her mother, hooked up to that dialysis machine. Thought about the eviction notice on her door. Thought about the $12 in her bank account. Pride was a luxury, just like crying. Maya picked up her phone and dialed. The Hunt Industries building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds. Maya stood on the sidewalk outside, feeling impossibly small. She'd never been in a building like this. The lobby alone probably cost more than her entire apartment. Complex. Security was tight. Maya had to show ID, sign in, and pass through a metal detector before a stern-faced guard would even consider letting her near the elevators. Patricia Lynn had told her to arrive at 2 p.m. It was now 1:52, and Maya was already sweating through her only professional outfit, a blazer she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. The elevator ride to the 50th floor felt like ascending to another world. When the doors opened, Maya stepped into a reception area that looked like something from a design magazine. Everything was chrome and glass and carefully curated. Modern art. The receptionist, who looked like she'd stepped off a runway, smiled at Maya with practiced politeness. "Ms. Torres? Mr. Hunt is expecting you. Conference room 3, down the hall to your left." Maya's legs felt like jelly as she walked. The hallway was lined with photographs. Alexander Hunt shaking hands with presidents, accepting awards, standing beside Nobel Prize winners. This was his world. These were his peers. What was she doing here? The conference room was dominated by a massive window overlooking the city. Alexander Hunt stood at that window, his back to the door. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary had been. His dark hair was neatly styled, a far cry from the wet, bedraggled man she'd hidden in a storage room. "Ms. Torres," he said without turning around. "Thank you for coming." "Mr. Hunt." Maya's voice came out smaller than she'd intended. She cleared her throat and tried again. "You wanted to see me?" He turned, and Maya was struck again by how different he looked in his natural habitat. Here, in this tower of power and money, Alexander Hunt was intimidating. But his eyes, those were the same eyes she'd seen in the diner. Intelligent, intense, and currently fixed on her with uncomfortable focus. "Please sit." He gestured to the conference table. Maya sat, feeling like a child called to the principal's office. Alexander took the seat across from her, and for a long moment, he simply studied her face. "You didn't cash the check," he finally said. "No." "Why not?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "Because I don't want your money, Mr. Hunt. I just want my life back." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "Fair enough. Then let me offer you something else." "I don't need a job," Alexander interrupted. "Here. At Hunt Industries." Maya blinked. Of all the things she'd expected, that hadn't been on the list. "I'm a waitress." "You were a waitress. Now you're unemployed." He leaned back in his chair, somehow managing to look both relaxed and in complete control. "I'm offering you a position as my executive assistant. Starting salary is $95,000 a year, plus benefits, including full medical coverage for you and your dependents." The numbers didn't compute. Maya shook her head, trying to clear it. "I don't have any office experience." "You have something more valuable. You have integrity." Alexander's voice softened slightly. "Do you know how rare that is, Ms. Torres? In my world, most people would have sold me out to those men for a fraction of what I offered you. You didn't. You risked everything to help a stranger, and you've refused to profit from it. That doesn't make me qualified to be an executive assistant to a billionaire CEO. Let me decide what qualifies someone for a position in my company." There was steel in his tone now, the voice of a man used to being obeyed. "You're smart, I can see that. You think on your feet. You don't panic under pressure. Everything else can be taught." Maya wanted to refuse. This was too much, too fast. She didn't belong in this world of corner offices and $1,000 suits. But then she thought about her mother. About the medical bills and the eviction notice and the $12 in her bank account. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why do you really want to help me?" Alexander was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made Maya think he was sharing something important, something true. 20 years ago, I was homeless. Living on the streets, getting by on day-old bread from a bakery that took pity on me. I had a brilliant idea for a tech startup, but no money, no connections, no way forward. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. Then someone helped me. A venture capitalist named Marcus Chun. He saw something in me that no one else did. He gave me a chance when he had no logical reason to do so. That chance became Hunt Industries. What happened to him? Maya asked. He died 5 years ago. Heart attack. Alexander's jaw tightened. I never got to fully repay him. VE spent every day since trying to honor his memory by doing what he did, giving chances to people who deserve them. The story could have been a manipulation, a carefully crafted tale designed to tug at her heartstrings. But Maya saw the grief in his eyes, and she knew it was real. I don't want to be your charity case, she said. You won't be. I expect you to work hard. I expect excellence. And if you can't deliver, you'll be fired just like anyone else. Alexander leaned forward. But I believe you can deliver, Ms. Torres. The question is, do you? Maya thought about every rejection. Email, every closed door, every time someone had told her she wasn't good enough, smart enough, educated enough. She thought about her mother's faith in her, even when Maya didn't have faith in herself. I'll try, she said. Alexander smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. Then we have a deal. Welcome to Hunt Industries, Ms. Torres. They shook hands, and Maya felt the calluses on his palm. For all his billions, Alexander Hunt had once worked with his hands. Maybe he really did understand what it was like to struggle. There's one more thing, Alexander said as she stood to leave. Your manager, Derek Chun. Maya's stomach clenched. What about him? I bought Rosie's diner this morning. The entire chain, actually. 27 locations. Cost me roughly $40 million. He said it casually, the way Maya might mention buying a sandwich. Mr. Chun has been terminated. You, Ms. Torres, are now the owner. The room spun. Maya grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. You bought what? It's yours. Outright. No strings attached. Patricia will handle the paperwork. Alexander's expression was neutral, but his eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I believe in appropriate consequences. Mr. Chun fired you for doing the right thing. Now he can contemplate that decision from the unemployment line. This is insane, Maya breathed. This is business. And justice. Alexander walked to the door, then paused. See you Monday, Ms. Torres. Don't be late. After he left, Maya stood in that conference room for a full 5 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. She was employed again. She owned a restaurant chain. Her mother's medical bills would be paid. Her life had been transformed in the span of 30 minutes. Maya pulled out her phone, with shaking hands, and called her mother. Mama, she said when Rosa answered, you're never going to believe what just happened.